Senators return to Washington this week. They have a lot on the schedule, including President Biden's social spending bill and a deadline to keep the government running. Democratic leaders are trying to secure 50 votes to get the Build Back Better bill to the president's desk. But first, they'll have to get moderate Democratic senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema on board. Both have threatened to derail the plan. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar said Sunday that the law would help shore up the struggling job market.
We've got workforce issues, and that's why this Build Back Better agenda is so important, George. Look at it. We need people, we need kids to go into jobs where we have shortages. We don't have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. We have a shortage of healthcare workers. We have a shortage of plumbers, electricians, construction workers. This bill puts us on the right path.
Are you confident it will get done before Christmas?
I am.
For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News political contributor and host of the Article 1 podcast, Molly Hooper. Molly, you know, it's finally time where we can start to say season's greetings to one another. But for all of us who follow politics, that also means potential government shutdowns. It means that the clock is ticking. And as you just heard, Senator Klobuchar say that she thinks she's optimistic that Democrats can reach a deal by Christmas time. Is she selling an optimistic viewpoint? Do you think that that's actually something that's within reach for the Democrats?
Well, it couldn't be within reach. I'm not sure about the conversation she's been having with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, those two moderate Democrats that you mentioned, who are essentially holdouts on supporting this bill. But, you know, I think the Democrats, the individuals who are working with the administration and really want to see this bill become a law, are singing optimistic, if you will, you know, to get this bill over the goal line. However, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with those moderate Democrats before that actually happens. And if Joe Manchin does not see a way to move forward, you know, with certain provisions that are currently included in the bill, like paid parental leave or certain climate change provisions, or even the general overall price tag, he's more in favor of a $1.5 trillion measure, whereas the House's version is more along the lines of $2 billion. $2 trillion. I get the illions. There's so many illions these days, but you know, it's easy to get them confused. There's so much money. That's the whole point, though. These centrist Democrats are very concerned with the price tag and whether or not moving forward this legislation could possibly increase inflation issues. So there's a lot of work, like I said, to be done between now and the end of the year when the president wants to have this bill on his desk so he can sign it into law. But it remains to be seen what's going to happen in the next few weeks until those two key moderates get on board.
Yeah. I wonder about that, Molly. Is that the only chance for President Biden to get this bill passed by convincing Senators Sinema and Manchin? Is there any scenario in which there is any Republican votes on this bill, or is reconciliation really the only option?
Well, I hate to say it, but reconciliation is really the only option. I think it's very, 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 very unlikely that any Republican would support this measure. They're taking the position that, you know, this is a major, massive social spending program, climate change bill that essentially is anathema to what the Republicans are standing for these days, in addition to which they say that it would only exacerbate the issue that Americans are facing across the country of this inflation, where prices are going up for the amount of money you're spending at the grocery store and not keeping pace with any sort of boost in pay that workers may be taking home. And in addition to which, they have problems with a lot of the provisions because once this bill does get signed into law, all the different states are going to have to go ahead and approve various portions of the plan. So essentially, a lot of these programs won't go into effect until a year or two or three out. And they won't necessarily last for that long. There's time limits on these programs, and Democrats did that intentionally so that they could reduce the cost of the overall package. However, you know, a lot of these programs are going to have to be renewed in the next few years. And if there is a Republican majority in Congress, that Republican majority is unlikely to approve those changes or that extension. So, yeah, I think that Republicans are not going to be in favor of this. And in addition to those moderate Democrats that we discussed, President Biden also has some issues with progressives in the Senate as well, like Bernie Sanders, the chairman of the Budget Committee, who has issues with the Medicare provisions. He says that they do not go far enough in the House bill. So it'll be interesting to see how the president manages to walk this tightrope. He's done it before. Let's see if he can do it again.
Yeah, you mentioned the possibility of a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, and obviously, we already are hearing people talking about the potential implications of those midterm elections. New polling gives Republicans an edge on approval going into them. How has this impacted Democrats' ability to pass the Build Back Better legislation?
Well, interesting. There's two sort of takes on this. One, there's Democrats who are saying, hey, if the Republicans are going to take over Congress next year, of course we have to pass the president's agenda because this is our only shot to do it. In addition to which, let's show the people that we are actually making change and getting stuff done for them in D.C. So that's one tack. On the other hand, you have more moderate Democrats like a Jared Golden from the state of Maine who voted against the Build Back Better bill in the House because he sees that it clearly would not help him in his re-election run. So on the one hand, you have Democrats saying this might be our only chance. On the other hand, you have some moderates saying let's not walk the plank because look what happened to the Democrats who did that, many pointing to 2010 after the Democrat majority in Congress and then President Obama moved through the Obamacare plan, and that sort of faced similar hurdles with moderate Democrats and the more progressive in the party, which ultimately ended up in a Republican, turnover of Congress. And the Republicans took a major majorities in both chambers, and it was to the detriment of Democrats. And I think the Democrats are trying to figure that out right now. This inflation issue is not helping their cause. And I think that there are some Democrats in the House, at least, who are trying to figure out how do we go and sell this package in a way that really resonates with our voters back home. How will this help parents of pre-K children? How will this affect individuals, who need to take paid parental leave, moms and dads? And they're trying to figure out better ways to message it. But as you said, the polls are kind of showing that Republicans are looking good for this upcoming election, but you never know what can happen between now and November. Next November.
Well, there is one thing that we're looking at potentially happening, and hopefully it's just the same exercise that we always see there in Washington, which is the deadline on Friday to prevent another government shutdown. Real quick, Molly, what's the latest on that front?
Well, this is sort of goes along with your season's greetings message. This is something that happens in D.C.
Right.
It feels like every Christmas holiday season in the winter. The deadline, we're fast approaching. Friday, you said Democrats want to have to approve a short-term extension that would essentially fund the government until December 17th. Republicans want to fund the government until 2022. They'll meet somewhere in the middle. I don't think there will be a government shutdown. And if there is, I don't think it'll last for too long, but I'm not going to place any odds on that because look what happened a few years ago when the government shutdown lasted quite a bit longer. But both parties are up for re-election come next year, and I don't think that this is what they want in the middle of a tough time for Americans out there, especially with the inflation and the economy not doing as well. I think they just want to get this government funded and move on to the other stuff.
Molly Hooper, always so good to see you. Thanks, and season's greetings.
Glad to see you. You too.